This is episode 11 of the Expert Table Tennis Podcast, and on today's show I'm joined by Istvan Moldovan, who is a table tennis coach. He's also a performance psychologist. He was a professional table tennis player for many, many years, Norwegian national champion, ranked around top 100 in the world, so he's played at the highest level possible, and now he's turned his focus into the coaching and especially the psychology side of the game. Istvan was my coach on the B75 summer camp that I went on last year with Sam, and I just loved listening to all the things that he had to say. He's almost like a philosopher of table tennis. Like, he's constantly thinking of new ideas, how to improve practice, how to do things better. So I thought definitely wanted to get him on the show, pick his brain about a few topics. In particular, we're going to focus on kind of performance psychology, motivation, and how to develop your training and your practice so that you get the most motivation, you get the most benefits from it. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the show. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Let's get straight into the interview. So my guest on the show today is Istvan Moldovan. Istvan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben.
It's really great to have you on. Tell us a bit about yourself, how you got started in table tennis, and what it is that you do now.
Okay. I need to go back in time. Well, I began playing table tennis mainly because my father, he got a heart disease. The doctor advised him to begin with physical activity. So I don't know how, but he was playing table tennis on a quite low level. So I joined him a few times, and I began playing. So I enjoyed playing table tennis. So this is how I got in contact with table tennis. Yeah, I became part of the environment where we practiced. A lot of kids, So I just kept playing, and of course I stopped quite a few times and began again, and then stopped again and began again. So it went forth and back, until all of a sudden a coach from the Romanian national team, he came to me and he said that, hey, you know that you can become a really good player if you want to. And then, that motivated me to go and practice more. And
how old were you when you said that?
I think I was about 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
And he also gave me some advice, if you really want to become a good player, you can go home and practice this and that, And then he had a talk with my coach, and then all of a sudden we began practicing more deliberately. So just 2 years later, I joined the national team. I went to the European Championships. After that, my career actually just exploded. So I remember we played quite well at the Junior European Championships, especially in teams. I was very good in team events.
Okay.
And so I played 2 times the European Championships. That was quite huge. After that, when I was 18 years old, I moved to Norway. So I've been playing table tennis at the lower level, and at the same time I was studying. And just after a few years, I joined the Norwegian national team. And then I played for 12 years for the Norwegian national team, playing all the World Championships and all the European Championships.
Yep.
Been traveling around and living the elite athlete bubble, day in, day out. Yeah, so how I got into sports psychology? Well, I'm coming from a family with psychological disorders.
Okay.
So I grew up with that kind of stuff, trying to understand personality differences and how the environment, what kind of impact does that have on our development. So I got into psychology on an informal level quite early. So and then I enjoyed performance sports. So I thought I could combine these two. So this is how I ended up studying sports science to begin with here in Sweden, and then I did my master's in psychology.
So were you studying while you were playing professionally?
No, not really. I stopped playing in 2007.
Okay.
I did not study when I stopped, so I just decided that I need to grow up and do and get a real job. So
Okay.
yeah, this is how I got interested in sports psychology. So.
Right. And then I was reading earlier this week a kind of a piece that you wrote as part of your studying, where you were able to interview Jan-Ove, Waldner, and Jorgen Persson and talk to them about their experiences. And you were looking at their motivations and basically trying to get to the essence of what made them great and what motivated them to work so hard. What kind of things did you learn from talking to such legends of the game?
What I learned, well, to begin with, the purpose with that work, with that thesis, was to get an in-depth insight in what was the motivational force
Yep.
behind their success across different ages. What was the deciding factor for their motivation and performance throughout their career? So I was pretty much amazed that nobody ever has done a scientific study with these two guys.
Yeah.
And that was quite impressive. And I was just thinking that these guys are getting old, they are legends, so many people, they look up to these guys, and who's going to get into their minds to get access to their experience, and yeah, they have won everything which is possible to win in table tennis. So so what I've learned is that of course Waldner and Persson, they are two different kinds of people. They have different personalities, although they have lots of similarities. They're quite different. Waldner he's coming from a home with lots of autonomy support. He's got a lot of freedom to think and do the things he just wants to do. And whereas Persson, he was more restricted. He's coming from an environment where his father was quite strict, demanding. So two different backgrounds. They both have had very good practicing environments. Waldner, already in the beginning, they had access to lots of players and a very good hall from morning to evening. They could go and practice whenever they wanted. They were competing almost every weekend. They were doing different sports, especially Waldner. He was playing tennis and he was playing soccer, and he was quite good at all these three sports, and he really enjoyed doing different things. Persson, he was not that much involved. He also played tennis and he was quite good. At the age of okay, now I'm going into and telling about the story, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
When they were 14 years old, they went to China, and already at that time, both Persson and Waldner, they were highly successful in a country like Sweden, which was really good, a very good country. So they were both playing the top league in Sweden, and so they went to China. And when they came back, they got really motivated to play table tennis full time.
Okay, so that was a big factor in it.
Yeah, and I think this is quite interesting, because many players, they go to China to learn and to practice, and they come back, and some of them, they actually lose motivation because they find it too hard. But Waldner and Persson, they just got even more motivated to play full time.
And why do you think that was? Do you think that's just their particular personalities?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of personality. It's a combination of the having the opportunity to practice, and having the belief that they can make an effort and develop the skills necessary to meet the demands of a high competitive table tennis.
Yeah.
And I think at the age of 14, I think that has to be quite unique. So of course they have been practicing very much. At the same time, I also believe that they had a lot of support, so they were not alone. to deal with all that. They, Waldner, he had his brother Shalokia, which was like a mentor to him.
Yeah.
So he was a very supportive person, and they were doing a lot of analysis all the way. They were watching so much table tennis. And Jorgen, he had his brother also supporting him, and he had a coach supporting him a lot. So they had a very supporting environment, both from home and in the practice hall. This, I believe, is quite important when you're making a decision to play, to put your life on this path. So, they became quite successful already when they were 15, 16. I think Waldner had already 18 medals from the junior championships, European championships, at the age of 16. So they were both quite successful.
Like, it seems to me that their development, their experiences would have been very different to what the Chinese athletes experienced that they were coming up against. Do you think that's fair to say?
It's very difficult to measure, I think. It's very difficult to go back and see. You mean like today?
Well, I just mean that it seems like they had a lot of individual control, or their programs were quite player-centered instead of being like over in China, where it's all about the system and having a huge quantity of players instead of just focusing on a handful of players.
Personally, I believe that this is one of the main reasons why Sweden has become so successful in table tennis, especially when we compare with China. There are so many players in China. It's really hard to imagine, but it's statistically, it's really hard to compare. But I believe that one thing which is quite unique in Sweden is the feelings of autonomy, giving children already in kindergarten, already in like early phases in school, they get the chance to reflect. They get the chance to the freedom to think for themselves and think critically. I believe this is something which was not that common in China.
Yeah. Well, I remember in one of our feedback meetings in Denmark last year, when Li Yang just came out and said that in China the players just do what they're told, don't they? They just do what the coaches say.
Yeah. I still believe that this is still the case in China.
And that was just his way of viewing table tennis, wasn't it? That the player does what the coach says, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. And I think this is the problem. Becomes a problem when the players they play a critical match and a critical situation comes up where you need to make your own decision. You need to make your own analysis. Think for yourself. I think this is where the Swedes have been really, really good. They could believe in their own way of thinking and in their own analysis of the situation, and they also could feel the power in making the change themselves, not relying too much on the coaches.
Yeah.
I believe this was the key for their success. Whereas the Chinese, they were as soon as they had the challenge or they got stuck, during the match, they were looking up at the gallery, finding the coach, and he was just showing here and there with his fingers, do this and that, and it looked a little bit funny, but so my personal reflection on that is that that both Waldner and Jorgen, they were as they said, that they were quite let me find the word, they were highly independent.
Okay.
At the same time, they were very cooperative with a few people in their lives, giving them maybe the best way to reflect and learn about the performance and constantly develop key issues and key areas in the performance.
Yeah. No, I mentioned that the camp in Denmark, P75, that we met on last year. Now that's very much part of the ethos of the camp, isn't it? This kind of idea of taking personal responsibility for your own training and enabling players that kind of autonomy.
Yeah.
And how are you involved in the camp? Like, what's your role?
My role on the camp, my role on the camp, first of all, I'm a coach on the camp. I'm one of the coaches. And also, I work quite close with Lars to develop the dialogue between the coach and the player.
Yeah.
This is one of my main areas, especially the feedback system on the camp. So this is my role. But regarding the camp, the philosophy of the camp is very much based on player-centered approach.
Yep.
This means that the coach's main task is to understand what the player understands. The coach's main task is to take a starting point in how the player understands his own game, how he perceives his own skills, and trying to help the player to develop his own skills to deal with the demands of table tennis. I think in psychology we call that empowerment.
Okay.
Helping the player to identify his own strengths and weaknesses and try to find a way to deal with that in an independent way. I think this is one of the main philosophies. And in order to do that, the relationship between the coach and the athlete is really, really important. And especially how the dialogue goes, for instance, the coach needs to be very humble, in order to create a mutual learning situation. If the coach demonstrates authority, this will damage the relationship in the learning.
Okay.
So this is what Lars and the coaches are trying to do, to create a dialogue based on warmth, understanding, and empathy at all times, and empowering the player, not just telling them what to do, because you will never know if they do it because they understand it's good for them, or do they do it because you just tell them to do it. So
yeah,
you see, there's a huge difference. And of course, we are trying to build. We have the check-in and the check-out, which is a very big part of the camp. The check-in is the check-in and the check-out. The goal with that is actually create room for reflection. Help the player to become more self-aware of what is going on. For instance, during check-in, all the players they tell about their goals. The coach asks them, okay, so what is that you would like to work on today? What is important for you? So they mention 1 or 2 goals they would like to work on, and then they set the practice, and then when the practice is finished, they do the checkout. So what was working? How was your practice in relation to the goals that you set? What could you have done differently? What was good? What can we improve? So the constant reflection is a very big part of the learning environment on the camp.
Yeah, and really getting the players involved in the dialogue and deciding what they want to practice and why.
Yeah.
Now, something that I wanted to ask you about that you mentioned a lot last year on the camp when I was there was this idea of not becoming a technique freak. That was kind of like a term that you used quite a few times. I wondered if you could just explain that to the listeners, what you mean by not becoming a technique freak in your training.
Okay. I can only tell you my way of thinking, and it's not the right or wrong way of thinking, of course. By technique freaks, then I mean that throughout my career, I have met coaches who have been talking so much about how important it is to have a technique.
Yep.
And I can't argue against that, because I believe technique is really important. It's a very important tool. My way of thinking is that perception is the deciding key in table tennis. my definition of good technique is your ability to adapt your technique to different kinds of balls coming towards you. This means that perception, meaning the way you read the spin, the placement, the speed, the power of the ball, is the steering process. The perception decides all the other processes in your body, meaning that a good technique is the one who can efficiently adapt to the demands of the ball.
Okay.
So, becoming a technique freak, what I was trying to say with that is that you need to pay attention to the ball, first of all, because table tennis is not golf. You have an opponent on the other side who is trying to do something to you, trying to play in a way which is unpredictable, both regarding spin, speed, and placement dimensions. So you need to be quite fast in making directing attention to the right cues and making the right kind of decisions before you hit the ball. Of course, technique has become more important today than it has been for the last 20 years.
Why is that?
I believe that there is more power and speed in table tennis today compared to 20 years ago. I also believe that the way players play today are more similar to one another.
Okay. So all the top elite players generally look pretty much the same.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. Of course, they all have some kind of differences. Of course, now I'm taking a more general view compared to how it was 10 or 15 years ago. So there's more power and more speed, and that kind of dimension is more obvious today than it was earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the technique. I think it's more easier to talk about the technique. I think this is also one explanation why so many coaches, they prefer the technique part. It's more observable.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's a behavioral perspective. You have quite a lot of access to a lot of information just by watching a player. Mm-hmm. But what you don't know is how the player adapts to different kinds of balls, towards him.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see what you mean there. Imagine that there's someone listening who is really into table tennis. They want to get really good, and they're prepared to do everything they can to become great at table tennis. From your experience as a player and a coach and a psychologist as well, what would be your advice for them? What kind of things should they be working on? What do you think works and what doesn't work? It's a big question.
Yeah, I need to think. I think the first thing to do is to understand the demands of the sport. It's like knowing the rules of the game. You need to develop some basic skills, as mentioned, develop your perception skills in parallel with your technical skills. These should also go hand in hand all the time.
Yep.
The second, it's really important to understand the differences between practice and competition. If you want to do competitive sports, your analysis and goal setting and planning of your practices should have a starting point in the competition. You should not practice just for the sake of the practice. You should practice in order to improve your competitive performance.
Yeah.
I think this is important. This means that you need to expose all your skills, both physical, technical, psychological, to the same situations which encounters in the competition situation. And then, of course, you need to dedicate yourself to the practice, and make an effort, and and being able to learn and refine your skills all the time. Regarding competition, you need to be able to find the right inner state in order to find to use your mind in a constructive and clear way. You need to find this emotional balance during competition. So you need to learn how to deal with setbacks. You need to regulate your feelings and your thoughts. You need to be able to listen to your self-talk, be aware of these inner processes, and you need to create some kind of routines while you play. You need to be reflective, ball after ball. Like, okay, so what was I intending to do, and what happened? What was good, and what is it I can change in the next rally, and so on. These were the skills that I actually did not have, not at least at not that degree, which I need to have in order to become a better player.
It's almost like you start to coach yourself, don't you? You have to work out what you're good at, what you need to improve, what kind of practice you want to do, and then just making sure that all of that is focused in on improving your actual performance when you're competing.
Yeah, this is actually what I'm saying. You need to be able to coach yourself. Of course, you need to work independently, because nobody has access to your mind, and nobody has access to your eyes, to see what you see. So therefore, you more or less you need to rely on your own way of seeing things, and your own way to identify what is that you do and you need to do, and just adapt to the situation yourself. But we need to remember that we need people around us in order to get the right kind of support and encouragement, and this is really, really important. You're not going to make it alone. There's no way you can make it alone. Nobody makes it alone.
No.
But when you're at the table and at a competition, you're all by yourself.
Yeah.
You're alone with your thoughts. You're alone with your. You need to do all that yourself, and you even need to find encouragement yourself, and the support. You need to, as you say, you need to coach yourself in a good way to get the most out of your potential.
Well, that's great. That's been a really good chat, Istvan.
Okay. I'm happy. You think so?
It's been really good. Thanks for coming on the show.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Are you on social media or something if people want to follow you? I'm not sure if you've got Twitter or anything.
Well, I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook. But I can be reached at sport.psychologist@live.com if somebody would like to get in contact with me, and Facebook, of course.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, thank you, Istvan.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Thank you very much.
Cheers for coming on the show, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Big thank you to Istvan for coming on the show. That was such an interesting interview. I think I'm probably going to rewind it and listen to it all over again just to kind of take in some of the things he was saying, because there was just so much good information in there. After I hung up the call with Istvan, we were talking on Skype for a little while, and he told me that the club B75 over in Denmark that run the summer camp that I'm always promoting and trying to get people to go on, they are starting up their own full-time table tennis coaching academy in Denmark. It's going to be an ITTF hotspot. I'm really excited about that. Definitely want to learn more. It's going to be one of those places where you can just go any time of the year, for a week or two of training. They'll have accommodation. They've got kind of full-time coaches and a team training there. So that's going to be awesome. And I'm really up for trying to get out there at some point and going and checking that out. So definitely have a look at B75, the Danish table tennis club, and the guy that runs that is called Lars, and he kind of works with Istvan and a few other people to kind of run that big summer camp in Denmark each year, which is just an incredible experience that you should definitely check out. That's all for me for today. do head over to experttabletennis.com to have a look at some other things I've been doing. I've recently started these Expert Table Tennis Pro Analysis videos where I kind of break down the tactics used in professional games. So you can find those on YouTube or on the site. If you like the podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe on iTunes and also leave us a review. That just helps us to get the name out there a little bit more. And I'll be back in a week's time with a brand new guest. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Ben Larcombe from the Expert Table Tennis Podcast.